a young woman is caught up in a dangerous romance.
I think she never saw this coming. She never expected this to be something other than a fun date.
But as the evidence begins to surface, investigators get a better idea of who they are looking for.
This offender possessed a particular set of skills that helped the investigators narrow down their search.
Merritt Island, along Florida's central coast. One humid July day, sheriff's deputies respond to a 911 call from a resident who lives on the riverbank. And when Deputy Brad Lewis arrives at the water's edge, it is clear why he called.
I found a white female floating in the water. It was apparent that she's a victim of homicide. I then contacted our homicide unit.
What I have here, I have a white female. She's bound, hands and feet tied with rope, with black window spline. She's got grocery bags tied to these bindings, and she has white duct tape that is wrapped around her head, mainly her eyes and her mouth.
The spline, a material used to seal windows, was used to tie her up. But investigators are stumped. What were the grocery bags for?
I called the homicide squad commander, Bruce Barnett. Also, the crime scene responded, as well as the dive team.
We removed the victim's body from the river and sent her to the ME's office for an autopsy.
Could the river be holding evidence?
The dive team continued to search for any evidence that might help us identify the victim, but we weren't able to find anything.
Detectives are left with a mystery. Who is this woman and how did she get here?
I did a quick check, missing persons. There were none that matched her.
To answer one of those questions, investigators can do what they call a set and drift test. That tells them the direction the current was coming from, and from that, detectives can figure out where the body went into the water.
We discovered that day that it was going from the southwest to the northeast, and so we followed that current.
The current leads to a channel where the very shallow Indian River suddenly deepens to 20 feet. And it's right under the Pineda Causeway.
We were able to determine that the body was placed in the water just on the north side of the bridge and drifted approximately half a mile to where it ended up right on the shoreline.
Was the victim thrown from the bridge? At the ME's office, the crime scene technicians begin the painstaking process of trying to identify the victim.
We noticed that there was several hairs on the tacky side of the duct tape that we needed to further examine. We sent the hair to the lab for DNA analysis.
Then agents try to get fingerprints from the victim, a very difficult task given how long she was in the water.
Crime scene technician Virginia Casey actually had to remove the outer portion skin of the entire hand of the victim. That skin is then placed over the gloved hand of a person, and then you roll the fingerprints.
When detectives run the prints, they finally learn who their victim is. 22-year-old Misty Morris of Satellite Beach. Detective Harold notifies the family. As detectives talk to Linda Morse, they begin to get a better picture of Misty.
Misty was a true friend to everyone that knew her. She was a bubbly, energetic, magnetic personality. People were drawn to her.
Detective Harold talks with Misty's mother about the night of Misty's disappearance.
Misty was in the bathroom, you know, fixing up, getting ready to go.
Her phone rang and she went strutting out down the hall.
That was the last time she ever saw her.
Mrs. Morse says that the personal items Misty left with that evening are still missing.
Her purse is missing, her cell phone's missing, and a lot of times she just carries her driver license in her pocket.
Whoever has Misty's driver's license could be the last one to see her alive. To help find that person, investigators call in criminal profiler Dale Hinman, someone who can get inside the criminal mind.
I got a call from Gary Harrell of the Brevard County Sheriff's Office. When I read through the case file and looked at the crime scene pictures, I thought that Misty Morse was probably killed by somebody that she knew who was familiar with boats and was comfortable on this river. The person who committed this crime went to such a degree of effort to dispose of the body, he must have thought that she would never be found. This had to be someone who knew the victim and wanted to distance himself from her.
Detectives hit the river with Agent Hinman to review the crime scene.
Okay, Dale, this is where we found her right here, washed ashore.
Dale, I have some photos here of the scene actually as we saw it.
She was nude. She had white duct tape around her head, her eyes, her face. She was kind of like in a front hog tie with her ankles tied to her wrist with a white sail rope, but also this black rubber-like screen spline. The spline connected these shopping bags, these grocery bags.
It seems like these bags are torn and perhaps used to weight the victim down with something heavy inside of the bag.
Something like rocks or concrete, anything to make a body sink. Spline is ordinarily used to bind screens, but the killer used it to bind his victim.
It's been cleaned off. Cool thing, though, about the spline is the tool extrusion marks that are big.
Extrusion marks are like the fingerprints of the machine that made the spline, meaning it is potentially traceable.
So when you find someone else who has spline like this, they'll be able to match the spline to whoever else has it.
The knots got our attention, too. I think it's a very disciplined knot because it's not a granny knot or something you would see a kid or something tying their shoes with.
And the other thing that's interesting, too, is I think we're not seeing that same knot one time. We're seeing it throughout.
So it's a knot that he's familiar and comfortable with tying.
When the eyes are covered or the face is covered, what does that say to you?
He wants to not look at their eyes when they're pleading or hoping that he'll change his mind.
But do you not think that that makes it a suspect who is more personally involved with
I
your
agree,
victim?
much more personally involved with the victim. If it's somebody who's never met her and doesn't know her, why would they care whether or not they were looking at him, or why would they care whether or not they're pleading?
Investigators now head to the spot where they think the victim's body was dumped in the river.
We did a drift test, and the drift test tells us that her body was probably placed here, and she actually floated to the northeast.
So this crime would really require a boat, because it wouldn't be possible for a person to wade in to this location and then weight a body down or throw the victim's body from the bridge. Is there anything significant about this area?
Well, this river is a shallow river overall. This particular spot where we are is 20 feet deep.
So this is much more likely to be somebody who's from this area and would have to know that this is the deepest area of the river. So it'd be somebody who is local, who has access to a boat, and is very familiar with this particular area to place the body in this location.
Whoever killed Misty apparently knew just the right spot on the water to dispose of her body. So we knew the investigation should focus on someone who had access to a boat and was familiar with these waters.
While the search for evidence goes on, the lab analyzes the hairs found on the sail tape that covered Misty's eyes and mouth. The lab reports that some of the hair belongs to Misty, but the source of the rest of the hair surprises police.
We learned that they were actually dog hair.
Being able to utilize that dog hair forensically as far as DNA evidence is extremely difficult. All they could say was that it was canine hair and it was of a particular type of breed, more or less.
The report stated that the dog was a mixed breed, part of which was Rottweiler. This was valuable evidence because Misty didn't have a dog, so that meant whoever killed her must have had one.
Maybe someone like a boyfriend. Detectives immediately trace Misty's cell phone calls in the days before her death and notice one number calling in again and again. They trace the number and come up with a name: Bobby Cooper.
There was a lot of cell phone calls from Bobby Cooper to Misty's cell phone where she never answered.
Maybe Bobby Cooper knows what happened to Misty or her driver's license.
Well, we found Bobby Cooper, found him, talked to him, learned that he had just gone out to a movie with her.
Cooper says that he's been dating Misty for about 3 weeks. Detectives find out that Cooper doesn't have a dog, but he does have something more relevant.
Bobby said, hey, I still have a driver's license.
Could Misty's new boyfriend know more about her murder than he's letting on? Detectives find murder victim Misty Morse's missing license in the hands of her new boyfriend, Bobby Cooper.
We thought that whoever killed Misty Morse was romantically involved with her. The fact that her boyfriend, Bobby Cooper, had her missing driver's license made him worth looking into.
Detectives asked Cooper to come into the sheriff's office to explain why he kept calling her cell phone in the days before her murder, and why he had her driver's license.
And you called her?
And I called her cell phone every day from then on out until...
Every day until when?
He said that he'd call her over and over, and he says, then he realized, he says, she's dumping me. And he just wanted to know why. If you're going to dump me, tell me.
But what about the driver's license?
Bobby said she gave it to me, and she says, just hold on to it.
I don't see that as being unusual. A lot of times women have said, hey, I don't want to carry a purse. Would you hold my driver's license?
And Bobby Cooper doesn't match 2 of Agent Hinman's key profile points.
We really felt that the person who killed Misty needed to have a dog and a lot of experience on the water. Bobby Cooper didn't have either one.
Since the killer left nautical knots, the investigation turns to what kind of person could have tied them. For that, they go to an expert, Coast Guard Master Chief Steve Neal in nearby Port Canaveral.
Hey, how's it going? Good. Good to see you.
Showed him the pictures, and Master Chief Neal started identifying knots.
Yeah, that particular one is known as a cow hitch, but it doesn't look like any standard knot.
If a person was struggling, would they be able to get loose from a knot like this?
Well, this particular knot, no, because this is going to hold real well, this cow.
What type of person would be able to tie that knot?
Someone in the Coast Guard or someone in the Navy. These knots are just part of the training of the boot camp. Okay.
This was consistent with our belief that the killer was an experienced boater, or that he had possibly been involved with the Navy or the Coast Guard.
Detective Barnett checks to see if Bobby Cooper was ever in the Navy or the Coast Guard, and he finds out that he wasn't. But the new clue about the Navy reminds police of something Cooper told them about a mutual friend of his and Misty's when they interviewed him, a friend named Brent.
What really stood out is when I met Brent the first time, he was bragging about how he was a Navy SEAL.
Brent is Brent Huck, a former boyfriend of Misty Morse.
Brent Huck is a guy who has a lot of friends, and he's kind of a partier, good time type of guy. Brent comes from a well-to-do family. He has an allowance of about $4,000 a month, we found out, through a trust fund.
Detectives learn that Huck lives at his parents' house along the Indian River. He doesn't seem like a killer, but he does love to brag.
Brent Huck bragged to everyone that he was a Navy SEAL.
That was interesting. An ex-boyfriend who had been in the Navy, that was just the type of suspect we knew we should be looking for. And if he had been in the Navy, he would certainly know how to tie the cow hitch knot.
And when police check, they learn it's true. Huck was never a SEAL, but was in the Navy, just long enough to learn how to tie the cow hitch knot and get tossed out for discipline problems. Detectives bring Huck in.
He gives us the story, his history of Misty, and says, yeah, they used to live together, it didn't work out. He said that he had another girlfriend, he's engaged, and Misty was kind of like a benefit. He called her whenever he wanted, and he got sex from her.
Brent Huck says that the night Misty was killed, he was out drinking with friends, including a girlfriend of Misty's who had an interesting bit of gossip.
Kelly told me that she had talked to Misty and she was pregnant with my child.
Huck says he called Misty on the rumor.
There was a phone conversation, apparently, where he goes off on her for saying that she's pregnant with his child.
You bitched about the pregnancy? Why? I have my girlfriend. I've been cheating on my girlfriend.
Detectives asked Brent Huck for permission to search his property, and he consented.
And when police look at Brent Huck's house, the case will turn a corner. Brent Huck has become the top suspect in the murder of Misty Morse.
Brent Huck had experience tying the particular type of knots that were found on Misty's body. Now they needed to find out if he had access to a boat, if he had a dog, or any of the other materials that were found on the victim.
As detectives enter Huck's house, things get really interesting.
He opened the door. He's trying to keep a black dog from running out the door.
The dog's name is Chiba, and it belongs to Brent Huck. It's a present he received from Misty Morse.
The detectives collected hair from the dog for comparison, then they began their search.
Terry went into his bedroom and walked out with a piece of crumpled up white duct tape. Huck looked at it and his mouth dropped open.
Detectives also find grocery bags in the kitchen.
The bags have lot numbers imprinted on them around the seam areas. Most people probably wouldn't know that.
In the garage, detectives find black screen spline. When investigators look toward the dock, they see a boat.
In the water, they found rope that was similar to the rope that was used to bind Misty.
Detectives now have a stack of evidence against Brent Huck.
If the lab reports showed that any of the items that were recovered at Brent Huck's house matched the items that were recovered on the victim's body, then they'd have their man. The crime lab report indicated that the plastic bags were from the same manufacturer and fell within the same numerical order as the bags that were found tied to Misty. The white sail tape that was found in his house was identical to the tape that was found on the victim's body. Additionally, the screen spline that was found in Huck's garage had the same machine markings as the screen spline that was found on Misty's body.
The hair stuck to the tape has a 90% probability of belonging to Brent Huck's dog, Chiba. Brent Huck is arrested for the kidnapping and murder of Misty Morse.
If Misty was pregnant, this could jeopardize Brent Huck's chances with his new girlfriend, so we believed he killed her and disposed of her body in the river.
Brent Huck was ultimately convicted and found guilty of first-degree murder, and he's now looking at life imprisonment with no chance for parole.
Thanks to the hard work of everyone at the Brevard County Sheriff's Office, Misty Moore's mother can have the justice she deserves.